Well, hi there, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you're here with me today. My name is Kareth. I like to do recipes for meals in jars. And today's recipe is it's 3 recipes. One is for the filling for chicken taquitos, or some people call them chicken flautas. The second recipe is for queso, or a cheese dip. And the third recipe is for salsa. Now, you are going to need to have some corn tortillas. I'm not going to do the recipe for the corn tortillas themselves. So you'll need to buy a package of corn tortillas, keep them on your pantry shelf. They last a few months, or you could throw them in the freezer. I do have a recipe up on my channel already for San Antonio puffy tacos, which gives you the recipe for corn tortillas. You could use that if you want to. It's a little bit of an involved process. It'll take you a little bit longer to make these, but it's a good recipe. And instead of frying those, you could just grill them and make them into corn tortillas and then proceed from there. I also already have up on my channel a recipe for queso. That one was not for a meal in a jar. I just made the queso on the stovetop. So I'm going to show you how to do it as a meal in a jar today, along with the taquitos and the salsa. You don't have to make all of these. They are good independently of one another, but I do like to have them together. Right, let me start with the filling for the taquitos. You'll need a pint-sized jar, and this will give you about 12 taquitos. You'll need 1.25 cups of the grilled chicken dices. I'm going to start by putting the first cup down into the jar, and then I'll put some cheese in there to fill the spaces, and I'll finish with the last 1/4 cup. Note on the cheese, you do need to blend that. Now you can use pepper jack, you can use cheddar, or I use like a combination of the two of those. But you do need to blend that in the blender first before you put it in the jar. And that's because it needs to refresh really quickly, and it won't have time to refresh if you don't blend it first. Okay, as far as the seasonings go, these are delicious seasonings. They will give your taquitos that kind of taco flavor. And I'm choosing to put 1/4 teaspoon of all of those seasonings in the jar. I mean, I think it's perfect. It depends on your spice level and what you like, but I would suggest starting with that and seeing if you like it. To that, we're adding just a few onions, some green chili peppers, some tomato dices. It's a perfectly balanced taco flavor, some veggies. It's really, really good. So anyway, that's the first jar, is the filling for the chicken taquitos. And yeah, really simple, not too many ingredients in there. All right, for the queso, like I said, I have this recipe up on my channel already, and you can watch that video. I'll link that video below if you want more detailed instructions than what I'm going to give you today. Just real quick, you'll need about 1.5 cups of cheese, and you can use a combination of cheddar and pepper jack, or all of one or the other. And you do need to blend these. It makes a huge difference in the cook time. I've made it both ways, blending the cheese first and not, and it cuts down on the cook time by about 10 minutes if you will blend it first. Now that sodium citrate is the secret ingredient, the magic ingredient. There's nothing weird about it. It's a naturally occurring salt, but I don't think you can usually get that at the grocery store. I ordered mine from Amazon, but you do need that to make this recipe. It acts as an emulsifier, and it'll keep your cheese from separating. And finally, I'll show you how to make the salsa. This is a great salsa recipe. I was inspired by Chef Todd from Thrive Life. I looked on the recipes tab of the Thrive Life website, and I saw Chef Todd's recipe for salsa. And I thought, that's a good place to start. Y'all know me, I'm going to fiddle with things and change things around, and I kind of created my own recipe, but it was based on his. I'm using the Lighthouse brand of the freeze-dried spices, including the freeze-dried jalapenos and red onions. And they are fantastic. I highly recommend that brand. The seasonings here are very simple. Salt, pepper, and just a little bit of garlic. Don't overdo the garlic there. because it will quickly take over the salsa. All right, to amp up the tomato flavor, I am going to add some tomato powder, and that just really helps to round out that flavor. And because everything is so acidic, I am adding just half a teaspoon of sugar. It does not make the salsa sweet, but it helps to tone down the acid. It's really good. And if you like a little bit of brightness, a little bit of that lime flavor, you can add a packet of true lime. And that's all there is to it. There's the salsa for you. So that is what you could store on your shelf. And like I said, these 3 recipes, they're wonderful independent of one another. You don't have to do all of these, but they are good together. But the chicken taquitos especially, if you're going to make these like I'm showing you in the video, don't forget you need a package of tortillas. You'll need 12 tortillas. So let me show you how I make these. This is a really easy recipe, okay? But you need a very hot cup of water. I mean, super hot, as in I put that in the microwave and it was starting to bubble a little bit. So that is a very hot cup of water I've got in a Pyrex cup, or in a Pyrex measuring cup. And I'm going to recommend you put it in there, and you'll see why in just a minute. You need something with kind of high sides. And I'm going to show you a technique that will help you get a fantastic texture out of your chicken. I would say you could pour the hot water directly into the jar, but if you did that, it's just too full. I prefer putting it into a different container where you have some room to stir. But you need to completely stir this all together. So you want that chicken to be completely coated in the spices, and you want everybody to have access to that really super hot water, because this needs to refresh completely before you stuff the taquitos. So when everything's good and stirred, press down that food, push it down to where everyone is submerged in the water. And then just put it to the side and let it rest 10 to 15 minutes. In order to roll the taquitos, you're going to have to put a little bit of oil on the tortillas, okay? So this is how I do it. I get a microwave safe plate, put a little oil down first, and then I just paint the tortillas. And the oil does a couple of things. First of all, it helps the tortillas not to break or split as you stuff them. And secondly, it also helps them to crisp up in the oven. I am not doing a deep fried taquito recipe. I'm going to do oven taquitos. And I mean, you can cook these all sorts of ways. You could deep fry them, you could pan fry them in shallow oil in a skillet, or you could air fry them. I'm sure, I have not done that, but I'm sure that would work. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you how to make these in the oven. And in order to get the best texture and crisp and crunch out of your taquitos, you need to paint them with the oil, okay? Now, if you have a spray, if you have avocado oil spray, that will work wonderfully as well. Now, you've got to microwave these for about 1.5 minutes. So put that whole stack in the microwave. I microwaved for 1 minute, flipped the entire thing over, microwaved for another 30 seconds, and those stayed nice and warm. All right, let's check on our chicken filling. So give it a stir. It's been about 10 or 12 minutes here, and that was perfect for my chicken because my water was nice and hot and everything was submerged. Do give it a taste. Make sure, find a big chunk of chicken and taste it, and you're welcome. Yes, it's so good. Okay, so delicious. Now, here's an optional technique I'm going to show you today. You might be thinking, Kareth, what on earth? But I'm telling you, this is going to give your chicken fantastic texture because it will shred it just like the shredded chicken that is put in a traditional chicken taquito. I first saw this technique with someone who got out their KitchenAid mixer and put a Costco rotisserie chicken in there and then shred it with a whisk attachment. And I thought, that's nuts, but it works great. So this is the same idea here. you're wanting to shred those cubes of grilled chicken into something that resembles shredded chicken. So I took that paper towel off. I realized you couldn't see what I was doing. But this doesn't take but maybe 1 minute or less. I mean, you're just putting your hand mixer on low. You're putting those beaters right in the middle. That's why I had you put it in that Pyrex container. But that's all there is to it. Look at the texture now. This is the texture you want for this chicken taquito filling. This is the perfect texture. It just has a whole different mouthfeel, okay? You have to trust me on this one, guys. All right, I'm going to show you the optional glue. I call it glue. It's like a paste I make to help keep the tortillas sealed so the filling doesn't leak out during the cooking process. Now, I'm using flour. I'm making a little paste with flour and water. If you're gluten-free, do not put flour on there, of course. You'll need to use the cornstarch. I have seen people use a toothpick method when they fry up their taquitos or they bake them up, but I have used the toothpick method with varied success. In my experience, it tends to tear anyway, and then the filling leaks out. So that I'm not going to recommend that. I recommend using this kind of a glue method. It's how they do it at the Mexican place up the road. All right, so you'll stuff 2 to 3 tablespoons of filling into the corn tortilla, tuck it in and roll it up. And then when you get to the edge there, you'll add a little bit of the paste. And you want that paste or the glue to be about the texture or the consistency of school glue, just so you can paint it on easily. Do place it seam side down on the parchment paper on your baking tray. That'll just help it out a little bit. And then you just rinse and repeat the same thing over and over again. Let me show you a little bit closer how I do it and see why it's important not to put too much water in your chicken filling. You want exactly a cup of water, so it's not too much liquid. It'll just leak out the sides. And then you just tuck it, roll it, paint the edge, and then continue the roll. Boom. There you have it. And then you just continue to do that. I got 12 taquitos out of that amount of filling. You might get 11 or 10 or whatever. But yeah, there you have it. Then you can just put them into a preheated oven. Cook that at 375 Fahrenheit for about 25-30 minutes until they're nice and crispy. And while those are baking, let's make the salsa. Okay, this is really easy. All you have to do is add water to the jar. That's it. You can shake it up or stir it and then just let it sit and refresh. It's very, very simple. All right, so try to get the water into the jar and not on the countertop. But yeah, you can put your lid on there and shake it, or you could stick a spoon in there and stir it up, just so everybody has access to that water. And I forgot to add my true lime, but okay, warning. I would go really easy on this, really light, just a little sprinkle, maybe a quarter of a packet. And that's just because it's a concentrated lime flavor and then it will easily take over the salsa. I mean, if you love lime, go for it, but I would recommend starting out really easy on the lime. All right, let me show you how I make the queso. Just get a small pan and start with about a cup of water in there. You need to bring that to a boil. And now is the time to add the sodium citrate. And like I said, you might have to order that on Amazon, but it's really cheap. I think I paid $8 for that huge bag of sodium citrate, and you just use half a tablespoon in this recipe. Once the salt has dissolved, then you can start to add your cheese, and you just do it kind of in increments. I did about half the cheese to start with. You want to whisk until it's really good and melted. And even though that cheese is blended, you can see little flecks of cheese in there. So it really does take a bit for freeze-dried cheese to rehydrate, even in boiling water. And anyway, you want to add about another 3/4 of a cup of water, something like that. And then the rest of the cheese. And you just whisk and go back and forth between water and cheese until all the cheese is in there and all the water's in there and you have a consistency you like. And then it's ready. That's all there is to it. All right, here come the taquitos out of the oven. Aren't those gorgeous? And remember, I used white corn tortillas. Mine came from a bakery that's down the road. So if you're using the yellow corn tortillas from the grocery store, they'll be even darker than that. All right, let me show you the salsa. So after it's sit in the refrigerator for just a little while the taquitos baked, it had plenty of time to refresh. And just look at that. See, it's nice and refreshed, but it's kind of chunky. And guess what Kareth does not like? Y'all, I don't like chunky salsa. I don't mind a little bit of chunk, but that's too chunky for me. The texture's just all wrong. So I put it in a blender cup and then I pulse that like 4 or 5 times in the blender. Now that's the kind of salsa that I like. This is what the salsa looks like at the restaurants that we go to. That's what I'm looking for. And so I just blended it. But y'all, that's a really good salsa. It's good with chips. It's good with taquitos, burritos, tacos, whatever. All right, so here we have it all plated up. I put the queso down on the bottom, and then as I eat, I just dip those taquitos into the cheese sauce. Of course, you could put it in a little bowl on the side, and you could dip them in there like that or whatever. But isn't that beautiful? We have our salsa. I like to have it with some fresh cilantro and some sour cream, maybe avocado or guacamole. They turned out beautifully. Now, if you are deep frying these, or if you're pan frying them or air frying them, they might have like a little bit of a different look when they come out. They might be darker, but they should all be crispy, even from the oven. So listen to that. Yeah, nice and crispy. These should be really good and crunchy. And then you can just, dip it in the yummy queso and the salsa, maybe a little sour cream. But how about that? Yeah, that's just perfect bite right there. These are delicious. And by the way, they're really good as leftovers, reheated. I wanted to show you what we did the next day. So I had 3 left over for a meal the next day, and I put those in the air fryer. I finally got an air fryer, y'all, and I really like it. But anyway, don't ask me for recipes yet. I'm still figuring it out. But they crisped up beautifully in the air fryer. And I combined the salsa into the queso to make a spicy queso. And it just turned out so good. All right, guys, thank y'all so much for watching. I will include the full recipe and my shopping link down in the description box below. I do that for all of my videos. If you're seeing this right after I upload it, then you are going to catch Thrive Life's back to school sale. Now, this is a great time to grab some excellent deals on Thrive Life foods to stock up your pantry. The things that I picked up were anywhere between 30 and 45% off. They have a couple of things at 50% off retail prices. So it's a great time to get some Thrive Life foods. It's also a great time to join as a consultant, because consultants, even if you're not wanting to share the food with other people, consultants earn 10% of whatever they spend in free food credit. Is called Thrive Credit. So that is a great deal for consultants. If you're interested in that, just click on my shopping link and you'll see the Join Us tab at the top. You can just purchase a starter kit, and just so you see my picture, then you know that you're going to be on my team. I'd love to have you. Okay, guys, thank y'all so much, and I pray you have a blessed day. Until next time, y'all take care and keep thriving.